Today on my channel, Planner Friends, I am talking to you about a study. I've talked to you a lot about the content, but I want to explain what this study is doing for me. And to be honest with you, I've learned the most from this study out of all my studies. I feel so much better understanding. I feel I understand the women of the Bible better and their stories. I also feel like I can relate to some of them in various ways. You need this study is the upshot. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about the chapters and how it's laid out and some of the things I've learned. So please join me. Stay tuned, friends. Hello, Planner and Faith friends. Welcome to my channel. I am One Crafty Dolo, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. On Sundays on my channel, it's always about Jesus, faith studies, prayer studies, and journaling, and I always have a funky large mug of hot tea. Today, I want to talk to you about this study. I want to tell you why I think it's probably the best study I've ever done. I'm not done with it, but I'm going to share bits and pieces from some of the chapters. If you're new, you're welcome to join my growing community. If you're returning, you're a subscriber. Thank you for the gift of your time and your presence. I appreciate you. Okay, so full disclosure, I bought this book 2 years ago, and I got partially through it, and then like life, right? Life was lifing, and I put it aside. Then in the beginning of this year, right before the start of 2024, I decided to pick it up again and said, no, I'm going to go back to the beginning and restart it and learn. This is Women of the Bible Speak. I've done numerous videos on it, but today what I'm going to do is flip. But before I do that, let me just show you how it's organized here real quick, because this matters. Every chapter contains 2 women, and even if at first they don't seem to mesh, she makes good points about what you can take from each. So you start with Sarah and Hagar, Rachel and Leia, Tamar and Ruth, Deborah and Yael, Hannah and Miriam, Esther and Rahab, Mary and Martha of Bethany. So then we're getting into the New Testament. You have Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary Magdalene, witness to the gospel, and Jesus and the women. I am currently on Mary and Martha. So it will take me a year to get through this. So I want to share with you why this is a good book, why it's a great place to start if you don't know how. And first off, you want to learn more about women of the Bible, but also if you're just trying to learn and how to study the Bible. And so I'm going to show you my methods and talk a little bit about the content, but I've done so many videos on the content. You need this faith study is my point. So I picked this Happy Planner Classic up, and I like it because, first off, for the price point, the paper takes all my crazy deco, as you'll see as we go further. There's room in here. It's a horizontal layout, so I can really write. What my approach has been, let me just show you. I quote mostly Bible passages in here. So I put those in quotes, and I will write down what verses, what book, what chapter, what verse I'm referencing. Now, sometimes I quote the author, right? And so that comes in here and there, and I do use quote marks, but the difference is it will not have passages. And when I'm using my own words, I use an arrow and obviously no quote marks. Why this study is so powerful is the author weaves the scripture in with a narrative to make you better understand the scripture. I'm not a theologian. I'm just a normal person who goes to church whenever I can, as much as I can. I do these studies so I can learn and better myself. But a lot of times I'm just trying to figure things out. And I love the fact that in the book, she draws different conclusions. She shows you what a passage might mean and what to extrapolate from it. And that really has made a difference. So First off, one of the things I was not prepared for is that there were women in these passages that I would relate to in some way, shape, or form. For example, Sarah, this is what really went, and the second time in doing this really made me see it in a way. But Sarah, they're going to have a child. She and Abraham, she's elderly. So she laughs, saying, as if, right? And she doesn't believe what God's angel is saying. And God then says, you kind of laughed. And she's like, no, I didn't. And so the idea of Sarah being human, as was Abraham, but fear is natural, but God's promises endure. And that really hit home with me. It just did, I'm telling you. And so I really enjoyed this being the first part. And it's really, and the fact that Isaac's name, or Isaac or Yitzhak, means laughter, and it's laughter of joy. So I put joy there. But the problem then becomes she compares Sarah's story with Hagar's. And so I did Hagar here. And again, I'm not going to go into everything. I have videos on that. But God saw Hagar. He listened to Hagar when Sarah was not very nice to her and casting her out, and she leaves, and the angel of the Lord comes to her. And so the lessons here, they're human. God kept his promises. We all have fears. And oh wait, God hears the lowly, including me, amongst us. So this space and this study have transformed what I know about women in the Bible, what I understand about women in the Bible, and my knowledge base is increased, as well as the space in my heart. And I think that's the best reason for this study. Pray before you start, open your heart, and it will reach you. The second chapter is on Rachel and Leia, and it took me this study to finally fully understand their stories. It just did. It's a complicated, it's complex, you have to unpack. Jacob wants to marry Rachel. Leia, the father tricks him. He's with Leia. It's, but God heard both women, saw both women, and this idea of our will versus God's will, well, God's will prevails. We have to step back and, who Rachel's sons were and who they became. And I never understood the story the way I did it in this book. So, yeah, God, like Hagar, God saw Leia. And I was very moved, even if I don't know why I didn't do this page, but I was very moved. And even if I didn't understand, or, if each story didn't touch me as deep, it doesn't matter, because each of these women serves a purpose. Case in point, the story of Tamar. I'm not going to go into detail. I've done that before, I believe. But Tamar resorts to an action regarding her father-in-law, and he admits she was right and that he was wrong, in a time when women may not have had that power, and yet she did, and she took it, and she does it in a very interesting way. But why does this story of Tamar, the author says, you won't learn about this in Sunday school. It's not the greatest story, but yet this is an important story, because through Tamar, we have King David. And through King David's lineage, we have Jesus. So if there were no Tamar, there would be no Jesus. And what's interesting, that in Matthew 1:23, and again, the author does a really great job. She takes you through the story in Genesis, and then she talks about Tamar is mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew. Okay? Wow. Think about that. This woman who theoretically, she wasn't very powerful, to say the least, and it's a longer story, but through her, we have King David, and as I said, in Jesus, and there she is in the Gospel of Matthew. Boom. Ruth is an outsider, and I think what's interesting about this story, she ends up marrying Boaz, and she's very faithful, following her mother-in-law, and what she does to show Boaz she's a woman of virtue, she's a woman of honor, and so forth. Again, every person matters, and Ruth, as you know, has her own book in the Bible. The next one, I believe, is Deborah in Judges. Deborah was a great prophetess, and truthfully, I knew who she was. I kind of sort of knew the story, but I know it so much better now. And you may see yourself a little bit in Sarah, or a little bit in Ruth, maybe a little piece of you as a warrior princess like Deborah. I don't know. What I do know is that this book helps you understand the study, helps you understand the women, often their motivation. And so that's one of the things I love about it. Just, I like this from Judges 4:14. The Lord goes out before you. This is such an incredible story of power. And she brings in Yael. Yael ends up killing Sisera. It's longer, but she certainly does something quite brave as well. And what my takeaway down here is how God worked through two different women. And then I didn't fully know the song of Deborah and Barak. And so in Judges 5, you can go through it. It's incredible. And and it's important. It's part of our history as Christians. It's part of the history of Jews. And they talk about Deborah arising as a mother of Israel. And so, yes, very poignant study. Okay, continuing on here. As I got into May, again, another one that really resonated and touched me is a story of Hannah in 1 Samuel. Hannah had no children. She's married to Elkanah, and he had another wife named Peninnah who did have children. Those women that are just awful and will rub your face in things, and they're just mean for the sake of being mean, and that's what Peninnah did. And Hannah kept trying to, keep to her faith and hold on and hold on. She was very distressed, but the Lord heard her, and she stayed in faith, and he helped her. Now, again, I'm not going to go too far into it, but until this book, I had never read the story of Hannah this way. I understood it a little before. I didn't know it well. Now I feel like, oh my gosh, this woman. I felt like I would love this woman. I would love this person if I ever met them. And I admire her greatly. And what she does with her son, it's just amazing. It's an amazing story. And like Deborah's song, you have Hannah's prayer, or the Song of Hannah. And I had to write it all out. But it touched me like I can't even tell you. Right? It's just hard to explain, but what I also liked about Hannah's song is that it kind of reminded me a little of the Beatitudes in the Gospel of Matthew, which is my favorite. Those are my favorite verses of all. And so I had to write it out in full. So this whole month was just about Hannah, and I continued the song here this week, and her son he is a great prophet. Friends, I don't know who needs to hear this, but we're into Queen Esther here, and I need you to realize that you too are a child of God, and you need to fix your crown on the days when the world beats you down, because the world can and does and will beat you down. This study reminds us of who we are as Christian women. It reminds us of the greatness of these foremothers who came before us and sacrificed and showed us repeatedly their heart, their devotion to God, love kindness, sometimes ingenuity in different ways. And this is one of those cases, Queen Esther, and she's chosen to be queen. And I'm not going to go in, you probably know the story, but the most famous phrase, how do you know you weren't born for such a time as this? And I love that. And she makes it so that her people and her uncle Mordecai are not only not killed, but venerated. And the evil Haman, she outsmarts him. And I kept on with Esther throughout July. I really dug into the verses. Okay. And that's what this study allows you to do. It's not just the verses, but she offers so much explanation to the passages that it's much easier to flesh it out, which is what I did. And in the end, God put Esther in a place where she could help her people. She arose to the circumstances using intellect to outsmart Haman with her faith. And God again works through Esther like he works through all the women in this study. It's fabulous. And I have gained so much confidence in my Bible study, largely because of this book. Now, I mentioned earlier you had you had Esther and Rahab, right? They're two. And who was Miriam with? Was it with Hannah? Yeah, Miriam and Hannah. I didn't get to Miriam that month, and I spent 2 months on Esther. So what I did then for September is I focused on Miriam and Rahab. Even though it's a little out of order, it was still good that I did that. And Miriam as Moses' sister, she was a prophet. I can do another video on that, but it's really all about, what happens. And what's nice too about her study is she's taking you through the Old Testament, but then she'll bring in points of the New Testament where these come into play. Rahab was very interesting. I didn't know anything about Rahab, and she made a choice to help the Israelites at a critical time, even though she wasn't one of them. And the fact that a woman, a prostitute in this case, steps up and facilitates Joshua, winning territory, the Battle of Jericho. She helps them and she saves her family. And so now I'm in October. We'll go through that. Or no, wait, this is still September. Wait, what did I? Oh, right. Sorry. And then Mary and Martha of Bethany, which I have to admit, I knew the verses, Mary has chosen the good portion for herself, but I didn't know enough. So I'm still fleshing this out slowly but surely. This has been great. I'm learning, I'm growing. I guess I forgot to write here. I don't know why. I don't know, but I'm in October and I'm still doing this. You can sometimes find this book at libraries. I bought it at Hobby Lobby. You might even find it used. You want to learn more about women of the Bible. You want to understand it better. You want to relate to them in some capacity. This is how I did it. Incidentally, I forgot to show you. I created a section. I just added an extra divider back here where in the front, I'm using mostly the passages, so I better know and understand them. And then in the back here, I really flesh out what the story is. And this has also been a help. This is just how I approached it. I learn by reading. This may even be, if you're an auditory learner, you may want to learn by listening to the book. I'm sure you can do that. But this has been just a wonderful, wonderful space back here. And I actually think I have to add more pages at this point. This is getting really, by the time I'm done, it's going to be huge. Now, one quick note is I do decorate, as you saw, sometimes stickers. This is from a paper pack that I just glued on. I like to decorate and make it creative. You certainly don't have to. For me, though, creating a 2-step process keeps me accountable. That's why I do it. And I just have fun. And sometimes I just use stickers and markers, as you can see up here, and I just play with it. So I like to make it interesting and fun and so on. So that's it, friends. This is the Bible study you need. I'm telling you right now. And it's a good reminder to straighten your crown and step into your role as a woman of the Lord. Thank you for your time today, friends. If I can uplift you in prayer, it would be my honor and privilege to do so. Just drop it in the comments below. Thanks for being here, friends. Bye now.